I hope you had a wonderful weekend. And now, are you ready for Chapter 6? Chapter 6 is kind of like Chapter 1. It is loaded with stories, familiar stories of Christ. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's see what my family has to say about it.
The first thing that really kind of stuck out to me right away was that, Jesus went to his hometown, and usually in that time period, I think, people knew who you were in your hometown. And it says in verse 6 that he was amazed at their lack of faith. So that just kind of struck me there that, he went to the synagogue and was teaching and doing everything, but the people from his hometown that you would think would know him, seems like they didn't really believe him. Maddie, when she was reading it, I heard her say, "This is gruesome."
Because they chopped off John's head. That is kind of gruesome.
It is gruesome.
It's not that gruesome.
Well, in my mind it is.
Could be worse.
It could be.
Could have chopped off his head and put
Do
snakes
you think
into
they
the
literally
hole.
chopped off his head?
Yes, I think they literally chopped off his head. What do you mean? Do you think they give Herod's his head on a platter? No, I think metaphorically speaking, they chop it. What? What do you mean? Do I think they really chopped off his head?
I don't know. Just asking. That was weird to me because he talked about saying that he said that that if I remember correctly, maybe I didn't, but that King Herod liked John the Baptist.
Yes.
And so to me, for him to behead him.
Well, it's because his daughter performed for his birthday, and he's like, "I will give you anything," and it was his word, and he didn't want to go back on his word. And his daughter was like, "I want him beheaded," because that's what her mom wanted.
Right.
So it was kind of selfish of her mom.
Yeah. And this is changing a little bit, but I like when with the Jesus feeding the 5,000 at the beginning in verse 32, it says, he said to them, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest," because they've been doing so much healing and worshiping and everything else that for them to be able to take time to rest would have been a good thing, but it ends up they weren't able to rest.
I also just really like the feeding of 5,000 too, because it's just incredible that like 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish could feed that many people.
I like the feeding of the 2,000 better. Because there's multiple feedings. No Bible humor? Okay.
Well, they do that with that miracle, and then it goes into another big miracle that I think too is when the Jesus walks on water.
Mm-hmm.
I like verse 50. They were all terrified when they saw him, but Jesus spoke to them at once. "Don't be afraid," he said. "Take courage, I am here." Yeah. And then 51, then he climbed into the boat and the wind stopped. They were totally amazed.
I think that's why I didn't take as many notes on this chapter, because it's just a bunch of the stories that I really went over a lot in youth group at FCC. Like the feeding of the 5,000 is a big staple. Jesus walking on water is a big staple. And the John story isn't necessarily a staple, but we did talk about it a good amount in Cairo and CYF because it's an interesting story and it's an important story.
Well, and I guess the other one that we kind of just skipped over a little bit was this is when Jesus sends out them saying, "Take nothing for the journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in your belts, wear sandals but not an extra tunic." I
was going to talk about that too.
Oh yeah, what were you going to say?
That's just amazing that he's like, "Don't take anything with you on this journey."
Yeah. Well,
like, you would think you have to take some food, but he was like, no food.
And whenever you enter a house, stay there until you leave town. I mean, can you imagine going to a stranger's house and just, "I'm going to stay here for a while"?
But the one after, "But if any place refuses to welcome you or listen to you, shake its dust from your feet as you leave to show that you have abandoned those people to their fate." It's like,
That's
Tough
pretty
love.
heavy,
Tough
huh?
love, yeah.
It's like a fig
I like the last verse, especially the last line of the chapter that says, "And all who touched him were healed." That's just so empowering.
Flashback to the lady who touched him.
Yeah, it really is because they like all like touched the fringe of his robe.
It's a recap.
Yeah, and all who touched him were healed.
There is so much interesting stuff in this chapter, isn't there? And a lot in this chapter that will challenge us. Like when Jesus sends out the disciples with nothing. Well, nothing but the Holy Spirit, that is. Are we willing and up for such a challenge in our own lives? Or how about after they come back, after the journey, and then Jesus takes the disciples out for a time of rest? Again, we see the relationship, the rhythm of God that God models for us that we need in our lives between work and rest. Do we keep a Sabbath rest? We need time in our life to rest. And then verse 5, where Jesus says, or it's reported by Mark that Jesus could do no deed of power because of their unbelief. That's such an interesting verse. Does our lack of faith put limits on the power of God? There is so much going on in this chapter, and we just scratched the surface. I hope that you have enjoyed reading chapter 6, and we'll see you tomorrow for chapter 7. Feel free to leave your questions and comments below as well.